Hello, how you doing? You have to bear with me on this one. I've actually applied a great deal of thought to this one. And when it comes to retroduction, this has proved to be quite an eye-opener so far as everything fitting together. It's kind of like we have earmark 1, 2, 3, and 1,000 plus earmarks. And how do they all tie together such that retroductively it can't be anything other than the correct conclusion that we would make by focusing our minds on the truth of the nature of something. If you're wondering why I got a bottle of water here, I'll explain that shortly. There was an experiment done a few decades ago by McConnell. You have to follow through with me. This is actually very, very important if you just bear with me. He actually used planaria worms, which actually have miraculous ability to regenerate. You could actually cut off their heads. We were taught about this in science school back in high school. This experiment didn't really go any further than that. I mean, some schools might have actually done that, where you actually cut the worm in half and, you know, the bottom end of the worm would regrow a head and a brain. It's very important that we could actually test things about ourselves and other creatures by using these planaria worms. But, you know, this is a really old scientific test, but now it's been renewed for a number of reasons. And I'll actually post a link to the article below. It doesn't draw even 1/10 of the conclusions that I do on this, but it absolutely fits with absolutely everything we see in nature. These worms have a true synaptic nervous system just like humans do, but of course they also have incredible powers of regeneration. He would actually train these worms to, when they see a bright light, that they would get an electric shock. And so it's this trained response. The worms see light, they recoil, because they know when they see the light they're about to get shocked, which of course they don't like. He'd actually cut the worms in half, even up to 10 sections. In each little section, even if it's the tail end, will regrow a head and eyes, and that section will have the memories of that training within it. Getting to the short end of the story here, and actually summing it up even more concisely, he actually thought that these memories were found within the RNA or the DNA structure of the worm. And so what he did is he actually essentially pureed, this is kind of gross, obviously, pureed these little planaria worms, and planaria worms are naturally cannibalistic. He would actually take the trained worms and feed them to completely untrained worms, hoping that by osmosis the genetic structure of the pureed worm, I know it's really gross, I'm going to leave the gross stuff here very quickly, to the completely untrained worms. And it turns out that with enough time, I don't know what the time frame was, that these worms consumed from the food the memories of the trained worms. Quickly delving into metaphysics here and the teachings of both Indian, Greek, and Egyptians, that, and I've said this countless times, the brain is not the locus of memory storage. It's absolutely not. And of course, something like 15 years ago, we discovered that all the cells in our body, we talk about muscle memory, where we actually train, that there actually are brain cells, all throughout our bodies and the bodies of other creatures that actually do learn things. So when we act instinctively from muscle memory, it literally is memory, as it turns out, memory in the damn muscles. So we're not brain communicating, down the path of our nervous system to react. I mean, it is actually genuine muscle memory. I'm getting the really important point here. You just have to bear with me. I've said countless thousands of times throughout the decades, actually, that the brain is the instrument, but it's not the storage. The brain is the messenger, but it is not the locus of storage. And I, more so than anybody else, my dead wife, Denise, who had an enormous brain tumor, that's why I have this grapefruit. You see this huge pink grapefruit here? If I'm lying, I'm dying. My wife, who slowly died after the removal of the glioblastoma, she was like one in a billion, almost literally, because everybody gets glioblastoma, they all die within a year. Anyway, she lasted 10 years, but this is how much of my wife's brain was removed. A tumor this frigging size. If I have to dig up the MRI charts where, she would get scanned, I'll do it. So don't even dare test me on that. I'll dig out the MRI chart showing a hollow cavity. And she had a beautiful singing voice before, and that was lost. A couple other minor things I noticed were lost. But her memory was sharp as a tack. Sharp as a damn tack. Incredible. Yes, this is how much of my wife's brain was infected with an enormous tumor. I said, if I'm lying, I'm dying. And if you test me, I'll pull out the MRI chart and I'll slam it on you. So let's get that out of the way. I've always known this to be the case long before I ever met my wife. And this all gets back to the holographic paradigm. So by cannibalizing the pureed worms, if you will, to the untrained worm, we know that it's actually absorbed. What about native, like when turtles are born? They immediately know to turn their ass towards the ocean. When birds are born, they immediately know, after they're born, when they're about to leave the nest anyway. There's all these things that animals and creatures do instinctively, right? We say it's instincts. When we say instincts, what the hell are we talking about? There's no such thing as an instinct in any human creature. So where are the instincts coming from? Is it genetic, or is it actually in this stuff? Is it actually in water? By the way, the water molecule, which is also tattooed right here, the 108-36-36 tattooed on the back of my hand, this same triangle and triplicate is also the basis of the Pythagorean pentagram. It's also true, the absolute only geometry in the entire universe that contains within it perfect Pythagorean incommensurability. It would take me like 20 videos to explain incommensurability to you. But it's the only geometry that contains perfect Pythagorean incommensurability. That's not my opinion or feeling or belief. It's a hardcore damn fact. One of the mysteries is like, is it a conspiracy, or is it people are being indoctrinated, which they are being indoctrinated with BS. Why is humanity like de-evolving? You, even if you hate me, will admit that humanity is de-evolving. And I've never been one of these hippie tree huggers. And I've obviously not led even though I don't drink or smoke or do drugs, it's obvious I've not led the most healthy life in the world. I get stuck behind the damn computer, eating processed foods. You know exactly what I'm guilty of, and I freely admit it. But what if, and of course there are way more than one reason, what if a huge reason is humanity's consumption of basically filth? All the water that we drink now is a billion times over reprocessed toilet water, okay? It all pours down the toilets and our, chemicals, everything else pours down to the water treatment plant. You know what a water treatment plant is? And so everybody that drinks anything out of the tap, or anything that actually comes from anywhere, unless it's like, water that's been trapped in the ground. And I've never been one to believe in spending money on expensive water. I've always been the opposite of that guy. Literally. Look at these dumbasses buying bottled water. Give me a break. And of course, a lot of the bottled water actually is just highly, highly processed tap water. It's not my opinion. That's a fact. Except for stuff like this. And I'm not promoting this damn water or Fuji water or anything else. I'm making a point here, and I've actually squeezed my brain, if you will, on retroductive thought into analyzing the nature of everything that we see as a paradigm, the instincts of all natural creatures, why humanity is spiritually, intellectually de-evolving. It's because we're all eating recycled trash. this guy, and the article is very important because now they're experimenting on snails. These scientists, they're on the right track. Okay? Well, maybe they're thinking it's in the RNA or the DNA of the creature. Kind of like genetic memory, which would still support the holographic paradigm. I think they're right, but they're only partially right. And I've thought about this a lot. It's actually in the water. The water that, of course, is making up the RNA and DNA. So they are right. It's this memory, like, how do evolved creatures, naturally know to do this stuff to stay alive, Nobody taught these little freaking creatures that they need to do this, 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 and this, and this, and this to stay alive. It's passed in the genes, but what the hell makes up the genes? The water does. For half of my life, I always kind of scoffed, and the New Age movement adopted. I think the reason earlier in my life I rejected the holographic paradigm was because it was so closely attached, like light and illumination, stink and completely inseparable. The holographic paradigm has been attached to the New Age movement, and I reject, the New Age, white lighter, rub a crystal, hippies, and so that's the reason why I rejected it. I know. Everything now I know about field theory and the holographic paradigm, which makes up the base, everything that actually has magnitude and mass is due to magnetism only. And magnetism is the holographic repercussion of the loss of energy or inertia, the centrifugal divergence, and of course everything that actually has, when you and I were taught in school that every atom is 99.999999999% empty space. Well, it's not. It's magnetodielectric after effect of the loss of energy or inertia. In other words, the interatomic volume measured in picometers of every atom. If the nucleus of this grapefruit was, it would be what? About the size of, like 1/1,000,000th the size of the period at the end of a sentence at the center of this. So this entire volume is due to magnetism. So that is the holographic paradigm. The holographic paradigm for where memory is stored is not in the RNA and the DNA, but actually in the water that makes up same. And this, this is getting to the really important point. By following this retroductive logic, everything fits together, but what does that also mean? That means that the insanity that we're actually seeing in humanity, by and large, we're not just talking about the United States, just incredible insanity. And human beings have always been, bloodthirsty animals. Well, we know this is true, but also is the case that, for example, today, if I take ancient masters, Pythagoras, Plato, Plotinus, Proclus, Numenius, be it Egyptians, countless Greeks and Indians, modern-day people with the most advanced education, and this is not my opinion, this is an undeniable, absolute damn fact. If I let these people read like 1 or 2 pages from these masters, their brains literally implode, like Nikola Tesla's favorite book, Theoria Philosophiae Naturalis by Roger Boscovich. I tell people it's a free download on archive.org. I said, I dare people, I said, I dare you. You can't even read 2 pages from that book without your brain imploding. And that's not an exaggeration. I said, I dare you. You could have 6 PhDs, and I will tell you, I dare you to read this book. You won't even make it 1 page before your brain implodes. You'll have no idea what the hell this genius was saying. So these people actually had a clarity of vision. And of course, we're all bombarded by endless frequencies that are broadcast from absolutely EMR, electromagnetic radiation, and RFI, radio frequency interference, actually interfering with the holos, or the whole of what we are, is unending. I mean, even if you dug yourself in the deepest cave, you could still pick up shortwave, long wave, AM, FM. What we're actually bombarded with is actually killing us. And if the holographic paradigm is true, and I stake my life on it, I know that it is, then this is the reason for humanity's incredible sickness. We think we're so advanced. I could go to Walmart, I could go to any place, I just look around. I mean, as unhealthy as I am, right? I'm not eating, I am doing a whole lot better. I used to be super skinny, but I've obviously beaten that. But I sit behind the computer too damn much. I don't exercise enough, eating processed foods. I'm guilty of that. But as bad as I am, whatever I am on a scale of 1 to 10, I go out in public, like walk in the mall or look in Walmart or any other like big place, and I look around, it's like, damn, holy crap. I mean, just damn. You just look at humanity, it's like, damn. You can almost smell the misery and the pain and the malaise of people. And I'm still getting to the important point here. This means that this memory and this effect on us resides in the water. Water is, the only incommensurate geometry. It's a polar molecule. It's the perfect holographic molecule. It's the basis of all life, as I recall it. This also means that when we consume water that is literally, this is no exaggeration, tap water, which is in everything, in our foods and everything, they just use filtered tap water or even distilled water. It's been recycled 1,000,000 times from people's toilets and sinks and every other dirty hole. When you eat trauma and consume trauma, this is a really important point here. When we eat and consume trauma, which is basically 99% of what all of us eat and drink and consume. When we eat trauma, we become trauma. When he was feeding the blended up worms that have memories to untrained worms, and by osmosis those worms made of their system the very same memories of those other worms that they consumed. And it's not in the RNA and DNA, which it is, but specifically it is in the damn water. I know this. I know this to be true. I will stake my life on it. I know it is in the water. That means that when you eat trauma, us, you, me, all of us, when we eat trauma, we become trauma. It actually, the memories and the hell that is the trauma, it becomes who we are. Of course, they say you are what you eat. That is way more true than I or you ever thought possible. I know this is true. Absolutely everything fits. Retroductive logic says perpetual reanalysis of this conclusion makes this a 100% undeniable. Retroduction, of course, I'll be writing a book on it starting at the end of August. And I'm the world's leading expert on retroduction. There is nobody that knows more about retroduction than I do. Never been a book written about it specifically. A couple articles, yeah. There are books on neti neti and via negativa, but not a book specifically on how important retroduction is. The brain is the instrument, but it's not the storage mechanism. My wife is a perfect example of that. But she's only one example of countless others. Memory is holographic. This explains the instincts of evolved creatures. How the hell does all of us on this earth have asked ourselves over and over again, or at least once, how the hell does this newborn animal know to do all this crap? How? It's not like, the stupid bird is, or, creature is, or the walrus or whatever is, It's not happening. A lot of these animals, of course, never speak to their parents, so that's not true. I mean, like turtles are left alone when they lay the eggs on the beach. How the hell do these turtles know to flap their things? And that holographic, it's not in the brain. People that, well, the brain is the storage. You and I were all brought up believing that the brain is the storage mechanism of memories. No, it's the instrument. It's kind of like a cello is an instrument. But the actual player, the modus operandi, is, of course, the musician, right? This guy's experiment with the worms and the renewed discovery that's branched out from that, and the fact that I've been thinking about this a whole lot and applying retroductive logic to trying to figure it out, and this is not something that I normally focus my mind on. It means that absolutely everything I see in this world, from natural instincts of creatures to why humanity is de-evolving. You know, we consume trauma, we become trauma. We consume stupidity, evil, and ignorance, we actually become that. Everything, countless hundreds and thousands of phenomena that seemingly are unrelated are now linked as one. And I'm more sure of this than I am of anything on this. Well, you know, I'm as sure of this as I am the model of what magnetism is, and there's certainly nobody on this earth that knows more about that topic than I do. This means that the crap food that we eat is transferring its evil. When I say evil, we don't mean literally evil, but essentially evil. The trauma, the delusions, the misery, into our personal makeup. When we eat, you know, potatoes, for example, let's just take a French fry. Potato, you know, is a natural potato. Oh, it's a healthy potato. You know, you pull it out of the ground, you eat it, fine. The processing, the oils, the chemicals, and a lot of the synthetic chemicals that are in our foods still have as their makeup water. Everything comes together beautifully. Absolutely everything. It's not that the people, so much that we're intellectually de-evolving. We are, because we're consuming evil. There's a famous passage, someone can tell me where this quote from. It said, humanity will fall into hell when they literally revel in eating and consuming poison. Everything we do. Even like if you buy a bag of frozen vegetables, for example, these vegetables are grown on land that has been so over-harvested 1,000,000 times over, fed chemicals to keep the bugs off, treated like crap, processed in crap, processed in recycled toilet water. This is the reason why someone with 6 PhDs can't read 2 pages of Roger Boscovich, or Plotinus, or like the Parmenides or the Timaeus. This is the reason why those people, none of us today, I mean, I can, and a very, very small number of people can, you know, pick these people up and know what the hell they're saying. Everybody else, it's like they're reading alien language. And this also explains why humanity, this smells really good. Humanity is today so deep. It is water. I know it is. I absolutely effing know it is. With every fiber of my being, and having focused the entirety of my mind on this, it ties thousands and thousands of things together into one simplex unifying principle. But these guys are on the right track. They concluded that the memories must be in the RNA and DNA. It is, but not really. It's in the water that makes up the RNA and the DNA. The RNA and the DNA are just like antennas, of course, for the creation of a species and its replication and its healing. Just as mind, the brain, the physical brain, is an instrument, but it's not the storage mechanism. It's the instrument, it's not the musician. The brain is not where memories are stored. You and I were all brought up believing that crap. The brain is where we store memories. Absolutely effing not the case. I don't care if you like this video or not. My conclusions on this are undeniable. I'm as certain of this as I am of the nature of what magnetism is, so on and so forth. And it explains a lot. I spent like half my life trying to reconcile light and matter. Light and this stuff. I finally did that last year. This reconciles a lot of stuff. It really, really does. And it bodes actually doom for humanity. I'm not trying to be doom and gloom, but it does bode doom for humanity. The water that we consume is 1,000,000 times over reprocessed toilet and sink water with endless filth and trauma. We're just recycling trauma and hate, and it's making up the genetic structure of who we are. And that is why humanity can't focus its minds at all. It can't understand things written by masters of days gone by. It actually explains everything. Anyway, I hope you liked this video. Have a good day.